Happy Moon Day, Collective. Hope everyone's doing well. Got the week off to a good start. Um, just about to prepare some Swiss chard from my garden. Still going. I have it in a terracotta planter in the front of my house, in the driveway area that I've made. The driveway cafe. I have like a bunch of terracotta pots with like various things, but specifically like a big thing of oregano is still going out there. I've got my Swiss chard. I've got some tomatoes still going. Um, and Swiss chard, I mean, honestly, the thing that attracted me to it first was the bright pink stems. Like I've always wanted to have a Swiss chard plant just to, I don't know, like as an ornamental thing, but also I told myself I'm going to buy one day and then I'm going to look up like what to do with it. So I finally did that this year. Um, and for anyone interested, aside from it just looking really, really, really pretty, like it's a big like eye catcher. Especially if you have it in a container with some other things. Like I guess this could be considered your thriller, which would be the element in a container that is like tall, gives the height. Uh, but it's a really, really lovely, lovely looking thing. But these stems are just got them like bright pink. And then the leaves, of course, are their own visual delight. Like you've got this like bright green with the pink veining, and then some of the leaves are like purplish with the hot pink veining. So it's really pretty. Anyways, kind of indulging my little artistic side while also indulging the practical culinary side. But I wanted to check in with y'all mostly because well, I know it's the Scorpio new moon today. And with that comes some energy, we'll say. Not bad, but Scorpio being a kind of the sign of the underworld, of the depths, the emotional depths. Um, a new moon in this sign has its own sort of emotional weight, perhaps, or depending on who you are, it feel like sort of like an emotional release, new start. It really just depends on everyone's personal placements, stage in life, whatever. Um, but the main challenging thing, or for some people that they might find challenging, is um, so for anyone that doesn't know, a new moon is where the sun and the moon are directly conjunct in a sign. So today, when the full moon went exact, or I'm sorry, the new moon went exact, the sun and moon were conjunct at 20 degrees Scorpio. But the main challenge was the fact that we also had Mars over there at 22 degrees, so 2 degrees away, the planet archetypal energy of conflict, aggression, um, war, chaos, but also action and initiation. So that was there right by the new moon. But as I had mentioned in, I think, the last video, all those things clustered together were forming an opposition to Uranus in the exact sign opposite, 180 degrees away in Taurus. Uranus is basically the planet that represents upheaval, sometimes like in an instant, like lightning bolt. 1 minute things are one way, and then the next minute not the same at all. Just when you combine that, of course, that kind of energy with making an opposition to Mars, and then the moon, new moon, our emotional planet, our luminary, and then the sun, which also has a way of illuminating whatever energies are there. That can be kind of a lot. So, I don't like to be all like fear mongery because it's not really appropriate, and it's not really how this works. Like it's everything is going to depend on your life as it already is right now. So like if the energies have been challenging and conflict laden and just like chaotic, that's probably because there was this like seed or energy of though of that kind of theme going on in your life already. And if you were somebody that has spent the last year like sort of squashing things down and sort of like brushing them under the rug, kicking the can down the road, however you want to put it, you're probably not feeling the most comfortable you've ever felt. Um, so of course, you might just look at that as nature's way of being like, hey, this is sort of a ticking time bomb. Why don't you go ahead and address these things? So that's really when I point out these energies. And because I say that because we're all guilty. Like there are a lot of things that we've all got going on, and it's not possible or practical to think we can solve all of our problems at once, right? So, I mean, I don't mean this to say like, if you haven't resolved all of your problems, well, then this is what you get. It's like, uh, we all know how the energies are affecting us based on the category of things that still lays sort of unresolved within all of us. And we've all got them. I mean, me included. And sometimes it's like actual tasks, like matters that you got to get around to, or things that you have to think about coming up that you're like you've been putting off, or just like relationship issues, personal issues, health issues, financial issues, whatever it is that you've been sort of like putting your head in the sand about. The whole point is these are the energies that are going to kind of be like, hello, wake up. And often it'll be some event happening that just sort of forces upon you like a wake up call, like the sort of chaotic Uranus energy. And just as like a little bit of more background on Uranus, it was discovered in 1781. Um, and so its discovery was like it was a surprise. It sort of challenged the common wisdom at the time, where um, prior to its discovery, Saturn was the outermost planet in our solar system. So it it was found outside of the bounds of Saturn, you know, the great protector of our solar system, or so we thought. But you know, then came along Uranus, and so already marking that sort of a new truth, sudden new truth energy. Uh, that very much applied to the moment of its discovery. A really interesting thing I read in like this astrology book I have that I thought was a really clever sort of metaphor is when you look at the unstable radioactive element of uranium. Um, you know, of course, in its original state, it's unstable, chaos, but then it stabilizes over time into lead, and it's sort of like this really interesting metaphor about Uranus, which is you know, as the rebel, the innovator, the like brave new world type planet. It sort of suggests that energy of what was once like the brave new world idea or the innovative idea becomes like the next generation's just sort of stable thing, you know. And that very much is what I've suggested is the nature of astrology. In fact, Uranus is the co-ruler of Aquarius. So I've mentioned before that Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, but it's co-ruled by Uranus. So when I say the traditional rulers, like that means basically once upon a time, you know, because astrology has been around for a long time, before 1781, obviously, you had Saturn as the traditional ruler of both Capricorn and Aquarius. So Saturn is still like considered the main ruler, the only ruler of Capricorn, but Aquarius has a co-ruler, and that is Uranus. And so Aquarian energy is very much associated with like sort of like futuristic, like what's next, sudden insight into like new ideas, and very much associated with what all those kind of key words of Uranus are, like sort of revolutionary in a lot of ways, insightful, but in a way that is like future minded, like nonconformist. So it's an interesting archetype in its own right, but when you kind of pair it with like Mars and like the two luminaries, it becomes sort of like, can we have some stability? Like less Uranus and more like stability, please. So, um, it's funny because I was talking today. I went to therapy today. For the record, for anybody that is thinking about going to therapy, starting therapy, whatever, Monday is an excellent day for therapy. Um, because you've heard me say moon day, and it's not just like clever little things I've made up. This is like traditionally Monday is associated with the moon. So when I say moon day, it's not just like this clever play on words like, oh, moonflower, get it? No, it actually is like a day associated with the moon, Mother Moon. And so I've said also before that the moon is generally our emotive planet, like our emotional world, our feelings world. And so, put the pieces together. It's like you're going to be most naturally like free flowing, I guess I should say, with your communication, especially on the emotional side, tending to the things um, close to home, because the moon is associated with home and roots. And that is often very much a prevalent theme in our therapy journey, whether it be the roots you came from as a child or like the roots that you are currently laying in your current life, current, whether you live alone or whatever, like your current home life is often a source of like not irresolved, but like well, naturally bringing up things that need your attention, that might not be fully integrated in the way that would make you feel like a whole, functioning person. Sometimes like getting things straight on the home front, whether your childhood home front, in terms of the memories and like resolving your uh feelings towards that, or just like the home that you're making right now. So for anyone thinking about embarking on a journey of therapy, which I highly recommend, I've been doing it all year, and it's I have to say I've surprised myself at how long and how like how committed I have been to it. Not that I doubt it, like I no one told me to start therapy, so like my commitment was all mine. I'm the one that sought it out and knew that I desperately needed it at the time. And I guess I just didn't really have a set timeline for how long it would go. I just knew that I really needed some help. Um, and I've worked a lot out in therapy and am working a lot out in therapy, but a big part of that journey has been, when I first started like brainstorming this project and bringing in what was sort of like a creative idea that began 2 years, like way before the chaotic upheaval, the Uranus event of my world at the beginning of this year. The Moonflower idea was born way before that, actually, believe it or not. And in its original inception, it was just meant to be, or just contemplated to be, a sort of like a garden design type business. It all started with my like all the time I was spending building up the landscape in the garden at this house, and learning astrology, and like learning I was a Cancer rising, and like sort of always being a lunar person, like loving going outside at night and like wandering in the night garden, and then of course buying moonflower seeds and like growing moonflowers, which I did like for the first time years ago before I lived in this house, and me just sort of putting the pieces together like, oh my gosh, moonflower, like the moon, my ruling planet. The fact that the flowers only bloom at night, so it gives you like some special show, like it's a special treat for those lunar people, those night owls that like to go outside in the garden. Like it's like you're the private audience of this one special vine that has its magnificent show at night. So it originated like that, and it was just Moonflower at that time. And what's interesting is some of my friends might remember I was like looking at like logos at the time. Again, I like don't really have a concrete idea of like where this is gonna go, but I was just like leading into the creative side of it. Um, and so I was just like looking online at all these like sort of like little logo ideas, and I remember texting some friends like five different sort of like contenders, and going, okay, everyone, like some with different color combinations, but sending everyone these ones that I had kind of narrowed it down to. And what's funny is that like I knew which one I liked, but people rightfully pointed out um that yeah, that's nice and all, but there's nothing about it, like, kind of going with the conventional wisdom of like branding. There's nothing about it that suggests like you're a garden designer, like. And so you guys, if you follow the Instagram page, which is just at Moonflower Collective. It's not the Moonflower Collective on Instagram. So feel free to go over to Instagram and follow at Moonflower Collective. To be honest, it's a lot of what you see in the shorts. And it's mainly like I reluctantly got on Instagram because I want to steer people to the channel because I'm more of like a longer form content type of person. But I'm not going to get trapped in my ideals of long form content being the superior form of content and realize that like you kind of got to meet people where they are. So anyway, long story short, if you go to Instagram, the actual like Avi for the Instagram page is the logo. And the only other place so far that you can see it on YouTube is at the end of the video, like the last 30 seconds, I believe, the watermark at the bottom right, you will see it. But if you haven't seen it, it's like this like pair of hands like this, holding a heart, like kind of cupped around like a heart shaped leaf. And if you've never seen a moonflower vine, the leaves are heart shaped. Um, but again, it doesn't. You don't look at it and go, "Oh yeah, like, that's probably a garden design business." But I didn't. I mean, I didn't care. I was just like, I don't know why you guys like. I get what you're saying, but I really like this one. And so other people were like, yeah, that's nice. But, everyone else had like a different choice. I don't even remember what the other ones were at this point. So I saved the photo, little logo, like started this folder on my laptop, just said Moonflower. And it just was like a thing that I didn't want to overthink it. I just like whenever something, I got creative inspiration, I just would like send it to myself and in an email. And like next time I was on my laptop, just opened it and saved it to the Moonflower folder. And that was back in 2021, like towards spring 2021. And, you know, what happened actually, uh, that's really when like a lot of the, in hindsight, a lot of the problems started. I just wasn't really aware that that's what was happening. And that was 2021 was when my dog Bear, the older one that I've talked about, that's blind and has mobility issues. That's really when that's when she lost her sight and like her health. Like it was like this sort of, it felt like very much like a Uranus type event. It was like I don't know, or like one minute she was just like an older dog that had all of her like zest for life and like all the marks of like her being a much younger dog. Just the age was like a number and that was it. And it was like all of a sudden like this dog that like I had since she was a puppy that me and my significant other at the time had raised together essentially. And now it was like heartbreaking actually to watch her lose her sight because it was like kind of a gradual thing that we didn't catch on to right away. And so it was just really hard to like watch her start like bumping around. Like what was happening as in hindsight we realized was that she was like frantically like mapping out the downstairs of the house, like making sure she had like committed it to memory. It's like she knew she was losing her sight. And I can't describe what it's like watching that. It was like made me want to die, to be honest. Like it was just so it was too much. It was almost too much. And like, you think, God, is there anything we could have done different? And like, what were the signs? It's still like it was like a lot of going to the vet and like doing this and that and like feeling like this poor dog's being tortured, and like that was just a time to where I realized, and at that time my at that time fiance, he was building up his business. Like he it was sort of ramping up and like kind of branching out and like doing other things. And so, and I saw how it affected him too. Like it was excruciating for him to watch, for both of us. Like basically she adjusted to it way better, to be honest, than either of us did right away. Um so there was like a lot of stress going on at that time, and I just decided, I mean, I would do the same again. The rational thing to do at that time was to sort of put my creative endeavors, as unformed as they were at the time, just like put that to the side. Like there was no way I was going to embark on some new thing that was still so undeveloped, and like where it was going and what exactly it would be, while my fiance and partner of like 16 years, like 15, 16 years at that point, it was like not even something that had to be asked. It was just like the obvious thing to do. Like, oh, you're making the money. Oh, things are getting busier, and you definitely aren't going to have more spare time to help with this. So it really made no sense for me to like start this new endeavor um while our dog was like going through this change that required a big adjustment, like in the day to day. um so that was 2021, like I said. And as it turns out, um that was the year that he had started uh having an affair with his assistant. Like he had his own way of coping that I was just totally unaware of. um and so it's hard because like I look back, it's like trying to rewrite memories of like holiday seasons, because it's just like, again, I actually had no like clue at that time. I didn't start directly asking him about his assistant until 2022, when I had suspicions. um but at that point I was like way later, like I was way late to the game, like because just like a lot of affairs, they start non-physically. And so by the time I started asking, like, oh, it had definitely started being physical. Like, they were basically he was basically cheating for 2021, and then like, as far as I know, I mean, could have been physical before 2022, but I know that for a fact by the time I started asking questions in 2022, I was like way too late in terms of how far down that road he had gone. But it was weird because like he never seemed to want to leave. It was just like it was weird because in hindsight I'm like, oh, this was a Uranus event. Like this was sort of like things had already gotten to the point of no return, but like it wasn't apparent to me until way later. And it wasn't, who knows how long it would have been beneath the surface, um, had I not discovered him on the phone that one night at 3 a.m., standing in the gym in the backyard. And so that was the real Uranus event, like to me, because that's when it was like all became apparent, all came crashing down. But like really, like I started the video saying, a Uranus event is rarely like a clap of lightning. It's generally preceded by things that, like, unbeknownst to you, were kind of bubbling beneath the surface. And that's the point of this whole anecdote, is that that moment, of course, is forever imprinted as like the chaos tower moment for me. Like, the sort of, oh my God, 1 minute, you know, everything's one way. And then the very next, I mean, the trauma really was like, imagine being with somebody for 15, 16 years. At this point, it's like, I can't even remember the amount of years. It was like damn near 2 decades, um, engaged for 10 years. And imagine, living with somebody for all that time, being with somebody, and just that being your like life partner, your person. And like one day you get up and it's Saturday and you just go on about your day and you try to stay out of their way because you sense that like they're stressed at work, and like you sense that they like don't want to, they don't want you around for whatever reason. And then by the end of the day, before you go to bed, nothing's the same, because you discover, this affair. And at that point, you don't know the full details, but you know that there's like a lot more to know. And I think the real trauma is that uh, the next day when we got up, and you wake up and you think, tell me that was a dream, and it's not. And he left the house that night, stayed in a hotel like a couple nights, and he never came back. Never came back. Even though there was like a whole like song and dance of like the road to reconciliation, that started like about maybe 2 days after he had been gone. It was sort of like swearing up and down, like, yeah, we're gonna go to couples counseling, and this and that, and like I'm gonna do whatever it takes, even if I have to spend the rest of my life making it up. And again, mind you, I don't know all the details at this point, but I already know that I'm gonna learn more things. But at this point, I'm like, well, it happens with couples. Like, I didn't know what else to think. I'm like, well, at least like I know I'm not crazy. And the last year has been like, I knew I felt justified in that. But I'm capable of like finding things out that are going to hurt me more than I was already. Like, I'm not an idiot. Like, to be honest, an emotional affair was, even if it had just been like I found out that it hadn't even become physical, but it was like this emotional affair, like that's hurtful. That was enough at that moment to be like, wow, you know what I mean? So, um, especially when you feel like you just like have been showing up. I showed up more than I ever have last year, like just in terms of like nurturing, and just like really thinking, okay, well, what kind of a partner are you if like your fiance can't go through like this struggle period? And it was sort of like me kicking the can down the road, I guess you might say, about, no, I'm not being treated right, but we'll figure that out later. And I don't know, maybe that's like the hyper pragmatists, like, people have things and like challenges at work that I might not know about, and like, who am I to like demand all of your efforts right now because like my feelings are hurt about the way you're treating me. Like, I don't know, it seemed practical, but at the end of the day, I look back and I go, wow, like, that's sad. Like, that's sad that that was just like my automatic reaction, is to just kick kick the can down the road when it came to my feelings in this relationship. Um, and I think the trauma of waking up one day and then like the next, like not knowing that that was like the last night he would ever spend, like he was gone forever. And like it was the the moment I found out that he was never coming back, that itself was it was like another event. It was another Uranus event, because it was like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna do all this stuff. And so I have this impression, because it's exactly like the song and dance that I was getting all day every day. And he was saying to my family and like friends, and everyone was like, okay, well, this is kind of messed up, but like it was just a known thing that we were on this road to reconciliation, and would probably be like in therapy apart, like living apart for a little bit. Him on his like road, me on my road, and then like after some period of time on those separate roads of therapy, like coming together in couples therapy, just kind of doing it the right way, like putting in the work. And so it was just like another kind of out of nowhere event where I found out it was like a night and day thing. It was like a switch had turned, which I still to this day don't understand. And that's been a part of the recovery, is just like having had to move on from the fact that like it will never make sense. Like it never will. And it was just all of a sudden like telling me like I don't plan on ever coming back. And it was just like, what in the world is going on? Like it was so night and day to where I was like, have you been like hijacked? Like what is honestly what is going on? I just it still baffles me. And it was traumatic, honestly. It was traumatic. And I try to only share the parts of it on this channel that I think can give a little bit of like color to whoever's watching, to why you see me doing all these things on camera all the time, going so out of my way to create joy and take care of myself and love myself by virtue of these things that I'm doing for myself, because I can't describe to you how absolutely hopeless it felt at the beginning of this year. And that's putting it mildly. Like, it was like the wind had been knocked out of me both on that first night, and honestly I was so traumatized that night, um when he finally admitted, like came in and admitted like that he was on the phone with his assistant. And then he started like badgering. It was weird. It was like he doubled down, like started saying all kinds of hurtful things, like, and it traumatized me so bad that I passed out at the bottom of the staircase. Like, so that became another trauma spot, place where I'd passed out at the bottom of the stairs before walking up in defeat to the guest room and just kind of crying myself to sleep in there. Um, because I didn't it was like, it was a weird thing to like watch, like someone turn on you like that. Uh, and for like a while, I kept replaying these moments, and like it was like I had to remind myself that I actually didn't do anything wrong. It was like the doubling down on cruelty when I wouldn't fight back, like when I wouldn't be cruel back to him, and I just like would kind of like ball up in defeat. That's when he would double down on like being absolutely unnecessarily cruel, totally unprovoked. And it was like a devastating thing to not only be on the receiving end of, but like to see this person like doing this Jekyll and Hyde transformation like right before your very eyes. It was just so, when I say that when I started therapy at the beginning of this year, I knew that I needed it like yesterday. It was like there was like this sort of like shell shock of the event. And the thing that frightened me was that I knew how long the road was that I had ahead. Not to mention the fact that like I had to figure out a way to not totally drop the ball. I had to figure out like how to keep, living in this house, and like how to keep our two old dogs like well and stable, and like, and that itself was devastating because I knew no matter what they were going to know like the other person wasn't coming. I mean, that was like when I started to think about the whole reality of it at any given point, it made me short of breath. Honestly, um, it was the most profoundly like devastating thing of my adult life. Like, and so when you see me on this camera and I'm all like chopping carrots and like talking about these soups, I just want you to know that this isn't just some channel where this just another girl is showing you like her like little emerging lifestyle brand to be. Like, no. This is a this is not that. This is so that if you're watching and for any moment think that there isn't a deeply healing purpose behind everything that I'm presenting to you, I just want you to know that that is not the case. Like it's a road that I have walked deliberately all year, and I'm still walking. And I'm wired. I've always been wired to be the kind of person to an older version of me would have been like, okay, you gotta wait till you get all your shit together. Like, pick some arbitrary moment in the future to start some endeavor with Moonflower. And to be honest, it would not have been on YouTube. It probably would have been something totally different. And it occurred to me that especially based on just the astrology that I do know and observe, the relationships and kind of struggling and suffering that I observe in people, just like people online in the collective sense, but just like, the suffering like kind of going on across the world and how that's affecting people here and across the world. I just understand that the collective sentiment right now, there's like a lot of despair and hopelessness, like sort of sensing like that nothing is actually the same and that it's kind of an ever changing world in ways that like it seems impossible to get your bearings, right? It seems like every day it's just some new thing that makes the world different than it was the day before, right? Like, uh, and I suspect that a lot of you out there in your personal lives are experiencing these things just in very different ways, but a lot of times in relationships. And, I'm not here to give you any sort of relationship advice. I'm not a therapist. But I will say that you need to protect your sense of value, your personal value. You need to guard that steadfastly because you know you can be a strong, assertive person, um, but you'd be surprised at how far down the road you can get of thinking that you have no worth, like because you have allowed other people, especially a romantic partner, to tell you about your value by virtue of how they treat you. And that's a power that we often do sign over readily to a romantic partner or someone that we love, because we trust that what they'll reflect back is like the love that you give, the nurturing that you give. And like the danger is, of course, when that was my working assumption all of 2022, the rational part of me, that was actively ignoring the intuitive part, was like, well, clearly this is something wrong with me. Clearly, I've been with this person this long. I haven't done anything. Like, I haven't betrayed. There's no reason why, if I confront this person directly, they wouldn't give me the one kindness of being honest, especially when I'd said the words for them, right? That ended up not being the case. So I became dangerously close to losing myself, honestly. And I look back at like that shell of a person I felt like at the beginning of March. So, the night where I found out, found him on the phone, that was February 5th. And then it was like exactly like a month later to where it was just like the about face, just through text, by the way. Like my relationship of almost 20 years ended through text. Just sort of solidifying like the feeling of like worthlessness. And so anyone that is going through whatever right now, whether in a relationship or otherwise, I want you to know that you can come back. Say your tower has already fallen, or if you feel that any day now you will have a tower and you wonder if you can come back from it, come out of the rubble, you can, but you have to decide that you're going to. And you have to reroute all that love, all that energy, whether it's angst, love, anger, whatever it is that you've been trying to resuscitate or like preserve or whatever. Just know that um, you can reroute that energy. It's good energy or bad energy. It's all energy in its rawest form. And that's one thing that I'm not just like all this isn't just some woo woo talk. I'm telling you it's true because I've done it. Like I have done it and it was all based, it all happened in my mind. The rational part of me that was very unfamiliar with this whole process of turning absolute rubble into building blocks. um, I've had upheaval before, but it wasn't ever this profound and sudden and like sort of causing a new plan on all fronts of my life to be formed. That's exactly what this was. Like everything that I thought was assumed for like how my life would be next year, the year after, or whatever, all of that was just like tossed in the trash can, in the incinerator, gone. So you can do it, but just know that it's not going to be apparent how. Like you just have to decide, just decide that not only are you going to survive this event, that you're going to thrive as a result of it. And I know that that sounds absolutely audacious and like borderline Delulu I get it. um, this is where your dose of Delulu is actually warranted, because you have to, it's not good enough to survive. Like, no, you're not just going to be somebody that survives, that pulls yourself out, like claws yourself out so that you can get a gasp of air. Like, you're going to do more than that because you've got all this raw energy now. Like, just surviving is like a mid-level event. That's like, that's baseline. Like, you've got this influx of this like despair. That is all energy. Like the despair and trauma, all of it, that's energy that has to be harnessed. It has to be routed somewhere with purpose. And I'm telling you, you have to do that. And that's why there's no better time than um, following total upheaval, or like, an ending like that you just didn't see coming. Like, you really need to decide, not know how, but just decide that that energy is going to be rerouted back into you, and you are going to build something with it. And it doesn't matter what it is, just something that you've never done before, because the reason why, you'll understand if you've ever been here, there's nothing left to be scared of anymore. I mean, that's why I'm on YouTube, because what was taken from me, what in my mind could destroy me the most in terms of what I valued, I didn't value what the world at large thought or anything like that. I valued what like my partner that I had chosen to be with for my whole adult life, and my plan indefinitely. That was the value system I had. My immediate friends, and then like of course my partner, my fiance. So um once that person hurts you so profoundly and discards you, um in in the most cruel ways, compounded upon more cruelty, um and so on and so forth, there's nothing to really fear in that sense anymore. Like, a part of me, a year ago would have just like gaffed at the idea that I would record a video to put online, let alone make a channel on YouTube. Anyone that knows me knows that. But the thing is, there's nobody in the world at large that can hurt me the way that I was hurt at the beginning of this year. So I thought, why not use my pain and show people that it is possible to reinvent, reimagine in the spirit of Uranus. Like, if Uranus is going to strike, And if it's going to just cause that chaos and upheaval, whether you wanted it or not, well, guess what? It's here. It's already, it struck. Now what? And that's always the question that I would present to anyone looking for this message is no one will blame you for, like, spending a year plus like just totally in despair. Like, no one would blame you for crying every day, crying your eyes out for a year. um Honestly, it took me a long time to get to the point to where I could go through a day without crying. And what really sucked about it is because, like, I was really good at like pulling it together for my dogs and like doing practical things, and then it would just like hit you out of nowhere. I would be like, okay, today's gonna be a good day, and I would go, really, I think I can go to the grocery store today. Like, I would make a list, and everything feels shaky, like, because everything's a milestone. You're like, this is the first time I'm gonna make this trip, like, in my new life, in my new reality. And it's like a fog, like the worst kind of fog. um and so I would get all like hyped up, and then I would, out of nowhere, I would just, like, the tears would come in the car pulling into the parking space at the damn Harris Teeter. And then I get angry because it's like, great, like, I really thought I had it. I really thought, I made my list, I built myself up. And then, with no notice at all, then come the tears, the Uranus tears. It's just like, great, can I not just get my groceries? And so, sometimes I'd pull myself together, and sometimes I would just, in defeat, go home, and then not let that moment color the next day. That's when I say doing the work, that's what I mean. It's like, sometimes you just got to write that day off and be like, well, this was a shit day, and I'm glad it's over. We're going to go ahead and like call it a day early. And then get up the next day and not let that previous day color this new opportunity, right? So if you are going through it right now, your job is to just keep going through it. The only way the only way, I guess, through it is, I don't know. The only way through it is through it, I guess. Like, the only way to get past it is through it. Don't circumvent, because what you're doing is you're creating something to rear its ugly head later, and are you're too important for that. You have important things to share of yourself with other people, whether you're aware of them or not. So you can do it. Wherever you are going through it, you can do it. Just got to get through it. Go within. Look at my hermit video, the hermit card. Look at the temperance card about the building blocks out of the rubble. And it's not just some like live, laugh, love shit I'm saying on there. It's very much like, I chose those things because those are the archetypes that truly got me through some shit. And sometimes when you feel lost in that fog, like, you're like, well, what do I know about anything? Like, someone give me some new input. That's the value of these archetypes. Like, if they're good enough for all of humanity before you, they're good enough for you. You just need to find your fit in there and pull from whatever archetype that you need that day. It's going to be something different all the time. Um, but I encourage you to kind of do what the child version of you would do, is use your imagination and imagine yourself being so much stronger and more capable and wise than you ever thought possible as a result of getting on the other side of whatever it is you're going through, because you just actually have to decide that that's what you're going to do. You decide that it's not good enough for you to survive. You're going to become a more magnificent version of you than you actually even knew was possible. So, on that note, I'm going to get to making some magnificent soup with my beautiful Swiss chard and my lovely fresh thyme and my amazing fresh ginger. Um, and I'm going to nurture myself. And then with the leftovers, I'm going to nurture myself again tomorrow, and I'm going to nurture my neighbor down the street, and I'm going to nurture my other neighbor down the other way on the street. So um, stay tuned to this channel if you want more ways of just getting through it. Sometimes with just going back to the basics. Get your food right because you need all the good input you can get. Take care of yourselves. Until next time.